Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. A game many consider to be one of the best Star Wars games and RPGs ever made. Yet no matter how many times I tried, I was just never able to get into it. Maybe it was the dated graphics or the old school D20 dice roll combat system, but every time I tried to play it, I was always immediately thrown off, never making it past the first section. So this year I decided to change that, and I finally sat down and played KOTOR from start to finish. And I now see why this game is regarded so highly by so many. Hi, my name is Vindy, and today I want to talk about my thoughts and opinions on KOTOR after my first ever playthrough. Before we begin, if you do end up enjoying this video, be sure to leave a like, comment below what you think of KOTOR, and subscribe to see more. Released in 2003 by BioWare for the original Xbox and PC, KOTOR is set 4,000 years before the Star Wars movies. You play as a Republic soldier caught in a war between the Jedi and the Sith, led by Darth Malak, who is using a powerful space station called the Starforge to build his army. Right after you create your character, pick their feats and skills, you wake up aboard the Endar Spire, a Republic cruiser under attack by the Sith. You're awakened by a fellow soldier, Trask Olgo, and from here, the choices you make begin. Trask explains that the Endar Spire is under attack and informs you that you are responsible for taking care of a passenger on board the Endar Spire named Bastila Shan. As you fight your way through the ship, you start learning the basics. Combat, movement, looting, and that kind of stuff. It definitely feels a little dated at first. The controls are stiff, and the menus are a little clunky, but none of it takes too long to get used to. And once I started leveling up and getting better gear, everything started to click. Eventually, you crash land on the planet Taris. And this is where the game slows down a bit. You explore the city, talk to people, and start seeing how much choice you really have. There's a guy getting shaken down for money. Do you help him, or do you let it happen? These choices are what define your character. There's a dueling ring where you can fight for cash, there's an undercity full of people suffering under Sith rule, and of course there's Bastila, the Jedi you're trying to rescue. Even though the combat and visuals feel old, the writing holds it all together. It's smart, it's simple, and it always gives you a reason to keep going. What really surprised me was how much the game trusted me to make decisions. Not just good or bad, but choices that felt messy. Sometimes you want to help, but the game doesn't promise you a good outcome. You might do something kind and still make things worse, or be selfish and accidentally fix a problem. It makes the world feel more believable, and it keeps you thinking about your actions instead of just picking the right answer every time. Eventually, you escape Taris with your crew and get a ship, the Ebonhawk. That was the moment the game opened up completely for me. Suddenly, I wasn't just running around a city anymore, I was flying through space, picking which planet to go to next. It felt like my own Star Wars story, not one I was watching unfold, but one I was shaping myself, and that feeling stuck with me for the rest of the game. By the time you leave Taris, you've got a full crew, each with their own unique personalities, and what's cool is that you don't just pick these characters up, they all have their own reasons for joining you. They're connected to the world and their stories evolve as the game goes on. From here, the real journey begins. You're sent on a mission to find pieces of a map that lead to the Starforge, the ancient space station the Sith are using to build their fleet. You travel to different planets looking for these pieces, and each one has its own story, characters, and challenges. It's not just go here, get the thing, and then leave. Every location feels like a self-contained adventure. Dantooine is the first place you go to. It's peaceful, grassy, and full of Jedi history. This is where you meet the Jedi Council and begin your Jedi training. You build your first lightsaber, choose your class, Sentinel, Guardian or Consular, and you start learning the ways of the Force and deciding what kind of Jedi you want to be. It's all about player choice. You can focus on healing, on Force lightning, on persuasion, lightsaber stealth, however you want to play, and the game supports it. It feels like you're finally stepping into that role. The star map here is hidden in ancient ruins, but along the way you help deal with local disputes, like a feud between two farming families, and investigate a murder mystery. It's a quiet place, but a memorable one. Tatooine is next, and it brings that classic Star Wars nostalgia with it. Sand, Jawas, Tusken Raiders, and shady merchants. Here you end up uncovering the piece of the star map hidden in a cave deep in the desert, but to get there you have to negotiate with the Tusken Raiders or fight your way through. There's a lot of freedom in how you handle it. Tatooine is also where you meet HK-47, the assassin droid who's just so perfectly unhinged and in my opinion one of the best characters in the game. He calls everyone meatbag, and I don't think I need to say any more on that. Kashyyyk is all trees and towering platforms. You go down into the Shadowlands, this dark, dangerous jungle where the star map is hidden, but getting there means dealing with slavers, Zerg Corporation, and helping Zabar reconnect with his people. You can even influence a Wookiee civil war if you really want to. It's also where you meet Jolee Bindo, an older Jedi who lives off of the grid and doesn't really believe in the Jedi code anymore. He's wise, funny, and just tired of all the black and white nonsense from the Jedi. Manaan is a water planet and home to the Selkath, who are all about balance and law. The whole planet runs on a substance called Kolto, which heals injuries and is super valuable for both sides of the war effort, so there's a constant tension between the Republic and the Sith. The star map is hidden in an underwater research facility, and down there things get really dark. There's a subplot involving missing scientists, secret experiments, and a giant underwater monster. I had to make a choice at the end that left the fate of Manan and its people hanging in the balance, knowing that whatever I decided would ripple through their future forever. And the whole time you're walking on eggshells, because if you cause too much trouble, the Selkath will literally banish you from the planet, or even worse, execute you. Korriban is the Sith homeworld, dark, ancient, and ominous. You end up going undercover at the Sith Academy to gain access to the tombs in the Valley of the Dark Lords. Each tomb is full of traps, puzzles, and combat challenges. It's honestly one of the coolest parts of the game, just seeing this side of the Force up close, and you're constantly choosing how to play it. Do you pretend to be Sith? Do you try to sabotage them from the inside? It's tense and moody and really atmospheric. If you're leaning towards the dark side, this is where you'll really feel at home. If not, it still lets you walk that line for a while. Each planet also has its own optional quests that make the world feel alive. You help out locals, uncover lost Jedi, deal with bounty hunters, and make moral choices that actually matter. And depending on what you do, some people might respect you more or completely turn on you. The side quests don't feel like filler either. They usually say something about your character or the larger conflict, and that always kept me engaged. Each planet feels completely different from the others, not just in looks but in tone as well. Some are more combat heavy, some are focused on dialogue, and some lean into mystery. It never gets boring because the game keeps mixing things up. As the story progresses, your companions are growing in their own ways. At first, they're just regular companions who join you on your journey, but once you start talking to them between missions, asking about their past, and hearing their stories, they start to change in how they see you, and how they respond to you. Some of them push back on your choices, some admire you, and some don't trust you at all, but they all feel like they're on their journey with you. There's Karth, the Loyal Republic soldier with trust issues, Bastila, the Jedi with a sharp tongue and strong opinions, Mission, a young Twi'lek who's way braver than she lets on, Zalbar, her Wookiee companion with a complicated past, Jolee, the grumpy old man who's seen it all and doesn't buy into Jedi dogma, HK-47, the hilarious murder droid who calls everyone meatbag, Canderous, a Mandalorian mercenary who lives for war, and T7, the little astromech droid who is full of personality. Every single one of them brings something different to the table, and they all evolve over time. I found myself checking in with them often, just to hear what they had to say. Sometimes they opened up, and other times they argued with each other. It made the ship feel like home between missions. Combat in KOTOR is a lot different from modern games. It's turn-based, but it plays out in real time unless you pause it to issue commands. Everything is driven by the rules of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, using a d20 dice roll system. Every time you swing a lightsaber, fire a blaster, or use a force power, the game rolls a virtual d20-sided die to determine the outcome. Whether you hit or miss depends on your character's attack bonus versus the enemy's defense, with modifiers based on your stats, equipment, and feats. For example, a high strength score boosts melee damage and chance to hit, while dexterity helps with ranged attacks and dodging. Critical hits are also based on dice rolls, and different weapons have different crit ranges, so some blades might crit on a roll of 19 or 20, while others only roll on a 20, and then a second roll decides if it actually hits. Armor affects defense, but also limits your ability to use certain powers if you're a Jedi, and each character also has a set number of actions they can take per round. You can queue these up and watch them unfold in order. It might seem a bit complicated at first, especially if you're not familiar with tabletop mechanics, but once you start to understand how it all fits together, the system starts to make a lot of sense and is surprisingly intuitive. It's more about planning than brute force, which fits the game's slower, more methodical pacing, and with the ability to pause at any time, it gives you full control to stop, think, and coordinate your team mid-fight. As the game goes on, the combat develops even more. You unlock new abilities, find better gear, and face tougher enemies that push you to think more carefully about how you approach each fight. Certain force powers can completely change the way fights play out, like stunning a whole group of enemies or using force lightning to shock them all. Different companions bring unique strengths to the table too, whether it's heavy firepower, tech skills, or support abilities. The deeper you go, the more satisfying it becomes to build a team that works together and covers each other's weaknesses. What I really loved about KOTOR was how the game handled being a Jedi. It's not just about swinging lightsabers or using the Force. It's about how you act, what you believe, and how much power you're willing to use. The game doesn't reward you just for being good or punish you for being bad. It lets you make choices and live with the outcome. Sometimes the good option isn't an easy one, and sometimes being bad gets what you want faster. And sometimes the game just sits in that grey area and lets you decide what's right. There were moments where I paused and actually thought about what I was doing, not because I wanted a reward, but because I cared. I wasn't thinking about loot or checkpoints. I just kind of stopped and thought, this actually matters. I cared about these people, I made choices that stuck, and it hit different. There's not a lot of games nowadays that do that. As you gather more pieces of the star map, the story builds towards something bigger. Each planet gives you more clues about the Starforge and what the Sith are really doing, but it also gives you more insight into the Jedi, the Republic, and the history behind the war. You start to see how complicated everything is, and that the Jedi aren't perfect, and the Sith aren't just evil for the sake of being evil. Everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, and that makes the story way more interesting. By the time you reach the final stretch of the game, everything you've done starts to pay off. The story tightens up, the choices feel heavier, and the stakes rise. I won't spoil what happens, but the last few hours are packed with tension, reflection, and some really big moments. And when the credits finally rolled, I just sat there for a while thinking about what I'd done, what kind of character I'd become, and what kind of galaxy I'd helped shape. It's wild to me that a game this old can still hit so hard. I mean, sure, the graphics are old and the controls can be a bit clunky. The combat takes some getting used to, but the story, the characters, the choices you make, all of that still holds up. In fact, they might hit even harder now because games like this are just so rare. There's no open world full of icons, no constant tutorials or hand-holding. It's just a well-written story, a focused adventure, and characters you actually learn to care about. It moves at a good pace and everything feels like it matters. It's the kind of game that rewards patience. The more time you put into talking to people, exploring the world, and thinking through your decisions, the more you get back. It's personal when it needs to be, epic when it counts, and heartfelt all the way through. The performance on PC isn't great out of the box. The game is over 20 years old and you can really feel it. It's unstable, it crashes randomly, especially during transitions between areas or cutscenes. Sometimes it will just freeze for no reason and you'll have to force quit and reload a save. Safe to say, it's very frustrating. If you're trying to play on a modern setup, it gets even messier. The game wasn't built for widescreen, so modern resolutions can break the UI and make things look stretched. Ultra-wide monitors in particular are a nightmare. It either crashes, zooms in too far, or turns cutscenes into just a mess of black bars and weird cropping. Without tweaks, it just doesn't play nice with newer hardware. But thankfully, the community's kept this game alive with a bunch of great mods and patches. There are widescreen fixes, resolution patches, stability tweaks, and quality of life mods that make a huge difference. You can make it look cleaner, run smoother, and crash way less often with just a little bit of setup time. It's a bit of a hassle at first, but once you get it running right, it's totally worth it. It won't ever feel like a modern release, but with the right fixes, it's stable enough to fully enjoy the experience. Now, if you don't want to mess with mods and patches, I honestly think the best way to play KOTOR today is on the Nintendo Switch, and that's how I ended up playing it. The performance is solid, it's portable, and the controls work really well for a slower paced RPG like this. You don't have to worry about crashes or resolution problems or tweaking INI files for an hour. You just boot it up and play. It runs smoothly, loads quickly, and the touch of portability makes it easy to sink time into whenever you've got a break. Sure, it doesn't have mod support like the PC version and you're stuck with the base experience, but honestly, the base game still holds up. And being able to play a full Star Wars RPG from 2003 while curled up on the couch or during a commute, that's pretty hard to beat. For me, it's the most convenient and enjoyable way to experience Knights of the Old Republic today. With all that said, if you've never played KOTOR before, I honestly think it's still worth it today, especially if you love Star Wars or story-driven RPGs. Even better if you like both. It might take a little time to adjust to the old school mechanics, but once it clicks, you're in for something really special. This wasn't just checking off a classic from my backlog. It was an experience I'll remember for a long time. Not just for the big story moments, but for the little ones too. The conversations on the ship, the quiet choices, the strange side quests, and the moments where I had to stop and ask myself what kind of Jedi I really wanted to be. I waited way too long to play Knights of the Old Republic, and now that I have, I finally understand why people say it's one of the best Star Wars RPGs of all time. Playing it for the first time in 2025, it didn't feel like some outdated classic. It felt like something that really helped shape what RPGs can be. The best part is just how much it felt like Star Wars. Even without the usual characters or settings, it builds its own world and still totally nails that Star Wars vibe. Those are just my thoughts on KOTOR. If you did end up enjoying the video, please be sure to leave a like and let me know. Comment below what you think of KOTOR and subscribe to see more like this. I'm Vindy and this was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.